Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to my studio. This is Paint with Lovejoy. Thanks so much for joining me. If this is your first time here, please subscribe to the channel and check out the other videos. And if you're here for a second, third, or fourth time, thank you so much for coming back and getting creative. Alright guys, it's going to be another fun painting for my beginner painters. So grab your supplies, transfer your traceable to your surface, and as always, make sure you take your progress photos. Now on my canvas, I did go over the traceable with a black Sharpie marker, and that's for those of you at home that are going to pause the video and draw what you see. If you utilize the traceable, you do not have to outline it with a Sharpie marker. So what we're going to start with first is a light teal, and I am using that large flat brush, and it's going to be white with a little bit of teal, and yours might be a little darker or lighter than mine. That is okay. And what we're going to do first is kind of put that water line in. So going about halfway, and this does not have to be a perfectly straight line. We're just kind of cutting it across towards the bottom of our boat. And then we'll be filling in that space, kind of moving up. There we go. And as you're doing this, if you need to switch to a smaller brush because it makes it a little bit easier, feel free to do that. Go right ahead and switch out for what you need. All right, and if you're one of my first time painters, please take a big inhale, relax. You're doing a great job. This is going to be a fun process to paint. All right, so here you can see I actually went and I made my teal a little bit lighter and grabbed some of that white and started to blend it in. So if you need to, feel free to adjust your color by adding more white or more of your pigment. The video is really just kind of a guideline. You do not have to do exactly every single thing that is done on the video. I do want you to kind of take this and make it your own and just use this as a, little base, little guideline for you. All right, so we are leaving probably the couple of inches at the top. We're going to go in with blue, or light blue for that. And again, that's going to be white with a little bit of blue. And then filling in just that top portion of the canvas. And if you are on a stretched canvas, I do recommend that you carry this color around the sides. Anytime you get a color that reaches the edge, just carry it around the side. Just makes it look nice when you hang it on the wall. All right, and where the two colors meet, you can softly blend that with a little bit of light pressure. Here we go. Sometimes I do like wiping the brush off. This is called wet on wet blending because both colors are wet. And it's kind of one of the fun process parts. All right, so you did see to pause the video and take your progress photo. Then we're going in with a little bit more of a teal or a medium teal and just getting kind of some shadows in our water area. So as you're following along for this portion, and now we're using a little bit of blue, I want you to just kind of mimic the place that you see me put it on the canvas and do the best of your ability to kind of mimic that on your canvas. But keep in mind that if you're inclined to put a color somewhere I do not, trust your instincts and go ahead and do that. Now I'm just using that light pressure, kind of keeping very horizontal brush strokes and just blending stuff in. You can use your finger to blend. Sometimes that's kind of nice and fun, but just kind of play with getting comfortable with the blending and movement of the paint. All right, you guys are doing a great job. So clean that brush really good. We're going to put some white here so that way we have a bit of a border before we do our sand color. So right at the bottom of our teal, that first part that first line we put on there, we're putting maybe a 1/4 inch of white, and then we're going to be making a mixture of light raw sienna. So that's white with our raw sienna for our sand color. And we are going pretty light here. If you want to go a little darker, go right ahead. And as we apply this, we're going to fill in the bottom portion of the canvas, and I want you to just kind of lightly mix this into that white paint as we put for that border between the blue and the tan. And that white paint just kind of helps. You don't really want these two mixing. They are on opposite sides of the color wheel, so they would kind of create a muted neutral color. So the white is your barrier to avoid that. All right, and once you have your sand filled in, we are grabbing that raw sienna, just like we did with the blue and the teal in the water area, and just getting some shadows on there and painting this in while that background is still wet. You're going to get real comfortable with your wet on wet blending. All right, doing great, you guys. Don't forget to take your progress pictures, even if I don't mention it. Um, it is really, really nice when you look back in a month, in a year, and 6 years from now, and you see how far your creative skills have evolved. All right, so we're going to move into the boat, and I'm grabbing that direct raw sienna. And we're going to fill in kind of the main body of the boat. And I will later on do a second coat on top of this, because even as you see me apply the raw sienna, you can see that it's kind of transparent. My brush strokes are showing up. We can see a little bit of the white canvas underneath it. And that's kind of what happens with student grade paint. It is a bit more transparent. It is a little more affordable. So that's what I recommend to my students. And to kind of deal with that, you've got a few options. You can apply it thicker, or you can do 2 coats. All right, so right now I grabbed that burnt sienna. It's the darker of the brown. And again, just like in the water, we're placing it in a few areas. And then with light pressure, I'm going to blend that into the base of the raw sienna. Now, if you're finding that your brush is shaky as you go to do this, that means you're holding your breath. So if you exhale as you touch the brush to the canvas, that will make you a little less shaky. And if you need to switch to the small pointy brush, go right ahead and do that. All right, so now we're going to make a little bit of the dark burnt sienna, and that is the burnt sienna with a little bit of black, kind of getting that shadow in there. And again, just observe the general place of where I'm putting each of these colors. Now, while you paint, another thing I recommend to all my students is looking at your painting from a distance. I do want you to get out of your chair and look at it from a distance of 5 to 10 feet away. All right, so now we're getting a light raw sienna and a little bit darker than what we used for the sand. There we go. So probably closer to a medium raw sienna, and filling in kind of the rim, the perimeter of our boat. All right, you're doing a great job. All right, and this is what we call the underpainting, where we have no canvas space filled in, or no canvas space left. And we've got our first layer on there. And like I said, we will be going over that boat a second time. All right, so a little bit of black still with that pointy brush. We're adding one more shadow set to our boat. And again, just placing it on top of the wet paint. Then I'll wipe that brush off, and with light pressure, just kind of blend this darker color into the base pigment. And keep in mind, a little bit of dark pigment will go a long way. So you can always add more, but it's a little bit easier if you start off with a little less pigment that you add. All right, another spot to pause the video and take your progress photo. I did let this fully dry before I moved into the next step. So we're taking the medium flat brush and white paint, and you can see that I'm kind of holding it perpendicular to the canvas, and just kind of, it's flaring the bristles out, and it's making this kind of almost kind of spongy texture feel to it. And we're thinking of these as being the white caps of the waves kind of washing in as it hits the shoreline. And then there's usually a couple of waves that where one's come in and another one's moving out as the other one comes in. So we're just getting kind of those in there. Again, trust your instincts. If you're inclined to put some of this wave action somewhere, I do not. This is your painting. If you want to put a little paddleboarder or surfer or swimmer out in the water, go for it. If you want to write your name in the sand, go ahead and do that. If you want to put some starfish, if you want to put actual sand on your canvas, I do encourage you to get creative, make it mixed media, but just more importantly, get creative and keep finding your creative outlets. I recommend to all my students to find their creative outlets on a regular basis, preferably monthly, if not weekly. All right, so final touches for that, and then we'll be going into one last layer on the boat. And if you like your boat as is, you can skip the second layer that I put on there. I believe I make it a bit darker, so totally your call if you want to do this next step. All right, so I am going back to the small pointy brush and the burnt sienna. And again, just putting my second layer on top of here, just so that way it's a little bit more opaque and a little more solid. All right, and because this paint is dry already, this is going over it nicely with that opaque coverage. And that's one of the nice things about acrylic paint. If you paint something that you don't like, because I do encourage that you trust your instincts, you just paint right over it. All right, so here I use the burnt sienna and black. This is where I was talking about where it got a little bit darker. If you don't want to add the black, you can use just the burnt sienna. We're going to put some highlights on this in a moment. All right. And if you need to, if it's easier to turn the canvas sideways or upside down, feel free to adjust what you need. All right, so now grabbing that raw sienna directly, just kind of slapping it on top of the darker area we just put on there. All right, and that light pressure, and if you are noticing that your brush strokes are showing up quite a bit, hold that brush at a 45-degree angle and your brush strokes will show up a little less. All right, and with that raw sienna, just going right along the rim of the boat, filling in those last couple of spaces, then we'll put some white highlights on, and that will bring us to the conclusion of today's painting. I'm really proud of you guys for stepping out of your comfort zone and getting creative with me today. All right, so clean that brush off really good, back down to the pointy brush and white paint. And again, these are just highlights. They do not have to be perfect, but just put them in the general area. And this is one of the things that kind of helps make it pop when we get our really dark spaces on there and then our really light spaces. So again, really proud of you guys for painting. I look forward to painting with you again in the future. And until then, cheers. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed the process of painting and I hope you are happy with how your paintings turned out. I'm really proud of you for getting creative. As you're uploading these to social media, please tag me at or hashtag paintwithlovejoy or email me your pictures paintwithlovejoy@gmail.com. I really enjoy seeing them. I try to post them on social media to encourage other beginner painters to try the process of painting. But please share this with your community as well. Anybody who is kind of scared to paint, share your experience with them and let them know kind of how much you benefited from it and how much you enjoyed the process. So kind of share the fun. With that being said, if you have any comments, questions, feedback, things that you want me to paint in the future, please leave a comment. I try to respond to everybody as quickly as I can. And any of the future suggestions for paintings, I add that to my production list and get to them as quickly as I can. So in the meantime, please keep getting creative. Let me know how you're doing. And until next time, cheers.